Have you guys ever seen that infomercial? I don't even know this guy's name, but he wore a suit that had like question marks all over it, and he was selling a that was like it looked like it was thousands of pages about getting money from the government, and it was just basically grants. He was showing people how to get grant money from the government, and he would talk really fast, and he would make it seem like it was so easy and exciting. It turns out it's not that easy to get anything from the government. I've got some explaining to do. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Ayana Explains It All, the podcast hosted by the big mouth black Muslim lady lawyer, single mother, born and raised in the hood, living in the suburbs, here to bring you the things you should know but you don't know because you don't use a search engine. And boy, oh boy, this week was a hell of a ride for some of you. Now, before I get into this week's topic, I wanted to say that I hope that you've been enjoying this so far. And if you haven't, I'm not sorry. I understand that the things that we talk about are not easy for people to discuss. Some themes and some things people don't like talking about politics and religion and relationships and blah, blah, blah. But these are a part of life, and this is what I talk about. I talk about whatever's going on in the world at the time. And I talk about some things I feel like people need to grasp in order to have a better handle on their career, their relationships, their parenting, et cetera, et cetera. I don't like to give advice. I just like to give you a roadmap. I offer a roadmap to success. Some things have worked for me, some things haven't. And I fully disclose anything that has worked for me and anything that hasn't. And I'm upfront with all of my failures and successes, and I lay my shit bare. I use anecdotal evidence, but I also use facts and figures to get my point across. So please find Ayana Explains It All, that's Ayana, on any of the 12 major podcasting formats, including Anchor FM, which is my flagship, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Good Pods. I'm also on YouTube. There's a program that I use that converts my recordings into a video that plays on YouTube. And I can't think of the other ones because there's so many. There are 12 of them. And I made sure that I was on so many platforms so that my podcast could reach more followers. That sometimes it's hard to keep up with them, but believe me, I get all the emails that shows me who's listening and where they're listening from and how many plays and downloads and all that good stuff. So like my podcast or don't, but rate, review, and subscribe so that you can be notified when new episodes come out. New episodes come out weekly, and I sometimes take vacation weeks because I am the single mother of 2 kids, and so I do have to take some time off sometimes to deal with kid stuff or deal with religious stuff. You know, I'm Muslim, honey. We got them funny holidays. Those funny holidays. But I also sometimes just need a break, and I thought about taking a break this week, but then I was like, oh, no, honey. We got to tackle this student loan forgiveness. This alien invasion of government loan forgiveness, apparently, that it's what it feels like for some people. They can't cannot wrap their heads around the fact that the U.S. federal government is forgiving debt. Like, when has this ever happened? Oh, my God. We have never, ever seen anything like this. I mean, have we? Oh, we have? Oh, right. The auto industry bailout. Oh, you're right. We bail out farmers too. Oh yes, bankruptcies. We bail out consumers and corporations every fucking day. Every day. Every day. And tax breaks for the rich? What? Now, why would we give the rich tax breaks? Oh, to encourage them to do business in the U.S., but they still don't want to do business in the U.S. They still move their operations overseas to Egypt and Vietnam and Pakistan and India and China. So here it is. The federal government under President Biden has decided to usher in a new program to have students who have borrowed on their education to have them receive forgiveness for their debt, some of it. And for some people, it'll see an elimination of all of their debt. But it was just for public service employees. Now it's for everyone. And maybe that's the problem. It's now for everyone. And once you give something to everyone, people get upset because the pie should only be for a certain number of people. Let those other people get their own pie, right? Or better yet, well, I had to work, pull up my bootstraps and work every single day to pay off my debts. Why shouldn't they? Okay, fine. You're measuring other people by what you did. That is not fine. That is not okay, because not everyone is like you, sir or ma'am. There are a lot of people really upset about this. And I do get why they're upset, because America is full of hypocrites. This is a land of hypocrisy, if nothing else. If nothing else. People want breaks for themselves and their families, but not for other people. You're okay with the government providing assistance to get the fentanyl and the OxyContin out of your suburban neighborhoods because Johnny and Jenny are overdosing. You're okay with the government regulating that. You're okay with the government providing assistance there. You're crying to Congress about how your children are dying from overdoses. And when there's no baby infant formula on the shelves of the stores, you're crying to the government, please step in and help us, please. Subsidize this, help us, make another factory, have someone else do it. Please, our babies are dying. You're okay with that. You're okay with that. You were okay with the stimulus checks that the government provided. You're okay with all of these other breaks that the government gives to you that help you. You're okay with that. But when the government wants to help everyone, suddenly it's a problem. And members of Congress and the Senate are, on the Republican side at least, are irate. How dare the U.S. government provide student loan forgiveness for everyone? This is insane. It's going to bankrupt us. Is it? I've seen how much money you all are giving to Ukraine. And I've seen how much money you all give to many other countries. And I see how much money you all ask the government to forgive in your PPP loans. I don't think it's going to break us to forgive student loan debt. In fact, it's not going to do much except make life easier for working Americans and for poor Americans. And anything that makes life easier for many people, I'm all for it. Even if it only makes life easier for 100 people, I'm all for it. I will never be one who says, no, don't help people. Because that's not right, in my opinion. We're not a socialist country like some people would say. We are a democracy, but we are a populace that sustains itself by voting and paying taxes. And if there's no people around to vote and pay taxes, well, how do we get any revenue to fix all the shit that's broken? How do we elect people? And people are feeling drowned by debt. People are killing themselves because of debt. People have $400,000 in educational loan debt because they wanted to become a doctor. Because you know what else is in short supply in the United States? Doctors, surgeons. They're in short supply in the United States. but we want to make people pay over $400,000 to attend medical school, and we want them to be in debt for the rest of their lives because they wanted to become a doctor because America needs doctors. Why not make it easier for them? Why not make it easier for people to become doctors? Why not make it easier for people to become teachers? Why not make it easier for people to become, I don't know, construction workers or nurses or anything that benefits the United States? And so many things do. But a lot of people are priced out of these industries because they cannot pay for the training needed for their career field. And yeah, college is training. College is training. So, speaking of college, I remember the great feeling of getting into a few colleges. I ultimately attended the University of Notre Dame, but that whole process of figuring out where I was going to go, it was so exciting. And I received numerous scholarships for my college assistance, for tuition assistance, numerous scholarships, especially that first year. And that first year was just, it was wonderful as far as paying for college. And I remember not really understanding what I was getting into when I was signing loan papers and when I was agreeing to pay back the student loans I received. I actually graduated with only $25,000 in undergraduate loan debt because I had work study and I had Pell Grants and I had scholarships from the university. And so I didn't really need a lot of loan money, but I still received loans. And I don't think I really understood what the loan terms meant. But, you know, I knew that I was going to go to law school. So, I mean, I become a lawyer like my heroine, whatever hero. Like my hero, Claire Huxtable. She was the reason why I wanted to. That character was the reason why I wanted to become a lawyer. Because I saw Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show. She was an attorney. She lived in a nice house with her husband in New York. And they lived comfortably. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to get out of the hood. I want to be a success. I want to do something that's going to make me a lot of money. I'm going to be a lawyer. You think I knew how much it costs to just study to be a lawyer? Not even to be a lawyer. To actually take the test, you have to apply to take the test. You have to be granted access to taking the test, and then you have to pay for the test, then you have to take the test. I had no idea what any of that cost. I didn't know that it was going to cost me thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. You know, my concept of money, I didn't really have too much of a background. You know, my parents did not explain a lot of things to me. I just knew that everything cost a lot of money. And so we were always being reminded of that, of how much things cost. Do you know how much I paid for this? Do you know how much I paid for this? You want to play clarinet? That clarinet costs a lot of money. You better play it until your fingers fall off. Do you know how much things cost? And when I find myself doing that to my children, I have to remind myself that it's not their fault. You know, they want to try different things and we're really investing in them. And sometimes I can get kind of pissed off about them not understanding the value of everything they're getting involved in or the things they want to do. And it's like, okay, kids, let me sit you guys down and explain to you what's happening. I don't want them to feel guilty about wanting things, but at the same time, I'm a single parent. I do not, I don't want to get into the whole child support conversation, but what I receive is not a lot of money. So I'm basically doing this alone. I mean, but this is the life that I chose, so I'm not going to ballyhoo about it. Isn't that the word? Ballyhoo? Bellyache? Bellyache. That's the word. Oh, good grief. But I do like to explain to my children the value of things. And I like to explain to them what a credit score is and what loans are and budgeting your money. They both have had jobs. And I explained to them budgeting your money, and you want to save some. And if you want to do something fun, well, you have to have money set aside because mommy's not always going to give you money to do these things. And if you want to do them, money is money is the key. Money is where it's at. When I was younger, I remember my parents getting dressed up to go to the bank to ask for, I think it was a refinancing of their mortgage loan. And I thought, wow, people get dressed up to go to the bank to ask for a loan? Do people do that anymore? I don't think so. I think you can just go on the internet now and apply. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to go into the bank. You can just apply online. They'll have people hounding you because they want your business. And so when I signed up for my student loans, I think my interest rate was like 3.2%, which is now unheard of. Unheard of. And listen, when I had to let that go, and I'll tell you why I had to let it go. When I was like, damn, that's like getting that really good parking spot in front of the store. And so you just want to stay in the store for hours because you got that good parking spot. You don't want to let it go. And I had, my student loan interest rate was better than my mortgage loan interest rate. I'm like, damn. Ooh. Man. But anyway, so in college, I had work study and I worked 2 jobs every semester and I took a full course load. I did dining hall. I was a copy editor for the student newspaper. I worked at the information desk. I was an office assistant for the student activities office. I was student manager. They had this large ballroom and I was a ballroom monitor. And I would monitor different events that were being held there. And I just did whatever I had to do. And that helped me pay for college, but it also gave me a little pocket money. But I wasn't really into doing things. I was a nerd, always in the books. So I didn't go to many places. I did not travel at all. I didn't do anything for spring break. In fact, spring breaks I actually spent in college. I stayed behind. And I did 2 years of summer session, which I was able to do for free. Thank you to the Balfour-Hesburgh program. Hey, shout out. But I worked during the summer too. I remember I had to paint. I was a painter. Good grief. I did so many jobs. I can't even. Woo. I've been working since I was 16. I am now 44 years old. When does it ever end? It doesn't. It doesn't. And my family was not, and is not wealthy at all. And I grew up in East Cleveland, Ohio, and I did not know wealthy people. But even though the area, I mentioned this a couple of episodes back, that East Cleveland was once the Millionaires Club, and Euclid Avenue was Millionaires Row. And Rockefeller lived there, like the Rockefeller, the first Rockefeller lived there, the first millionaire. And we lived in this gigantic house, but all of the houses in East Cleveland were large for the most part. At least in my neighborhood and in the surrounding neighborhoods, the houses were big because millionaires used to live in them. They were built by millionaires, but we were not wealthy. And I didn't go to school with particularly wealthy people. And so a lot of my friends, we went to college on scholarships and loans, and we had to work. And people who couldn't afford it didn't go. I know a lot of people who did not go to college, and they're fine. I'm I'm not saying don't go to college, but I'm not saying that you're going to be jacked up if you don't go. You'll be fine. You'll find some way to land on your feet. Is it better to go to college? It depends on who you are. It really does depend on who you are. If you want, I can't even say this because we've seen people who are very successful, highly successful millionaires who did not go to college, and some who did, but many who just didn't. They just were on their grind, and some of them fell ass backwards into money, but a lot of them worked really hard. Bill Gates and who's that other guy? Steve Jobs and all of them, they just worked really hard and they came up with a novel idea that made them billions of dollars. And a lot of people are doing that. They're getting wealthy through social media. They're monetizing their social media. They're monetizing YouTube, or what's that other thing? Twitch. They're not going to college. College is, it's a good destination if you want to be in a professional career field. Obviously, you want to be a teacher, you got to go to college. Although now, thanks to the pandemic, a lot of the rules in the states have been relaxed because school systems in the field, and some districts are hurting. They're desperate for teachers, so they've relaxed a lot of the rules. It's like when the United States was desperate for soldiers and airmen and Navy shipmen and all that good stuff. They relaxed the entrance rules. It went from you can't have tattoos to you can have a few tattoos, yeah. And you got a conviction for marijuana. Oh, that's okay. The need is there, so they're waiving a lot of the requirements, which I think is great. I think it's great because it's so expensive. Like, it's expensive to be a doctor or a lawyer. It's expensive to become a teacher. It's expensive to become a firefighter. Even you have to go to the training classes, and you have to pay for this or that thing, and you have to, if you're a person with a family, you have to be off work for a little while, because you're going through training. If you're like my brother went through the police academy, you can't work. I mean, it's expensive. Anything you want to do in the professional career field, I would suggest you go to college, but you certainly don't need to go to college. If you want to play pro sports, obviously you have to go to college. They've changed the rules now where they're not letting teenagers into pro ball. You got to go to college. You got to have at least some college and play for some team in college before. Or, I mean, they draft people from overseas. I mean, it's incredible. But college is the pathway to a lot of the ideal career fields. But college is expensive. And I found that out, obviously. I went to college. I did a 4-year private university. We were all sold that line, go to college to make something of yourself. But we weren't sold a way to pay for it outside of look for scholarships, take out loans. And like I said, I worked, but not everyone can work and go to school. A lot of my friends worked, a lot didn't. They didn't have to because their parents were able to pay. I mean, I went to Notre Dame, okay? There are people with boatloads, money coming out of their asses at that place. Legacy children whose last names are on the buildings. And then there was me, the poor minority, the poor Black minority who had to work. But I mean, that's great that they didn't have to. It's great that they had parents who could pay for it. That's fantastic. Some of us can't do it. Not all of us can do it. That's just the way it is. So I remember in my last year of college, I was I was short like $1,500 that I needed to receive my diploma. And I was going to have to take out another loan to do it. And I went to my mother. She was just like pissed. She was not happy that she had to, because my mother didn't have, like I said, she wasn't wealthy. She worked in public service too. There were other kids in her household she had to take care of. And it sucks that parents feel this pit in their stomach, this responsibility of taking on debt for their children. But ultimately, she had to take out a loan for $1,500 as a private loan so that I could receive my diploma, because I was going to law school. I had to have my diploma to go to law school. So, and it was a hassle. It was rough. But I graduated, and like I said, I had $25,000 in student loan debt. I was fine. I knew people who had way more than that, and I was good. Everything was good. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to law school, so I'll have a job and I'll be able to pay this off and it'll be great. I won't have anything to worry about. I could pay my mother back and I could pay these lenders back and everything would be fine. But, oh no, oh no, oh no, no, no. Something happened on the way to heaven. Ooh, ooh. Oh, yes. Firstly, law school, any professional degree program, school, law school, you want your MBA, you want your MD, you want your PhD, the shit is expensive. It is hella expensive. At least when I attended. I'm sure in the earlier decades, the 50s, 60s, and 70s and whatnot, it was not anywhere near as expensive as it is now. And let me tell you, for what you get, it's overpriced because you're not, at least in law school, you're not learning to be a lawyer at all. You're learning legal theories. You're learning how to read and write like a lawyer. But are they teaching you how to be a lawyer? No. That's what you get when you go to work. They have their little moot court and programs and all, but even that still does not teach you how to be a lawyer. That takes years of working as a lawyer to finally figure it out. And in the meantime, you've paid these people hundreds. Some people have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to a school to teach them how to read a book, to teach them how to write a legal brief, to teach them how to understand the legal theories at play in a particular case, to teach them how to research a case. Now everything is available online. It's a little bit easier than when I had to go into the stacks in the library to shepherdize and look things up. But still, it's overpriced. It's overpriced. I don't know why people still do it. I don't know why people still go to college, except in most states, that's the only way to become a lawyer. There are some states who have relaxed that and say that you can go and work with a lawyer for a year or 2 years. We know Kim Kardashian did this and then take the bar and become a lawyer. But in the great state of Ohio, where I passed the bar exam, you have to go to law school. And there were people I knew who went to law school part-time because they had to work. You can't go to law school for the most part. You can't go to law school full-time and work. It's impossible. There's so much coursework and you have to take classes. There are people who did night classes for law school. This is how much people wanted to be a lawyer. We would pay so much. We would sacrifice time with our families, sleep. We would take reduced hours at work and et cetera, just to become a lawyer, just for the honor and prestige of being an attorney. And it's great. Oh, yeah. You could do a lot of things as a lawyer. You don't have to work as a lawyer. You can work in human resources. You can, hell, I don't even know. You can be a teacher. You can be a teacher. You can be a teacher. You don't have to practice law. But I would say it's a very expensive education to get to not use it for something that's going to make you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Unless you don't have anything to pay back, then you can go do whatever the hell you want. But most of us have educational loans from law school and medical school and business school that we have to pay back, that we can't afford to, not do what we set out to do with our degree. So you get big loans, very big loans. And the terms on my law school loans, I was able to consolidate my undergrad and law school into one loan. And it was a fixed rate, interest rate of 3.2%. I got to keep the 3.2%. Yay! It was wonderful. Wonderful. I thought, okay, going through law school. I had a job lined up with a big law firm in Cleveland, an international firm. It was wonderful. I was so lucky. I was so happy. I had worked so hard and I had, defied some odds. It wasn't something that I was sharing with anyone, but I was severely depressed. And I was also in the midst of a very horrible marriage. It was an abusive situation, and I was still managing to go to class every day and read and take tests and everything. And then I ended up with a job as an associate. I had a summer associate job that turned into a permanent position after law school. And they said, all you got to do is pass that bar. You'll be fine. And they gave us a signing bonus. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This is wonderful, right? I'm going to be able to make all of my dreams come true. All the dreams that I had for myself as a little girl. I'm going to be a Claire Huxtable out there changing the world, right? Again, something happened on the way to heaven. Ooh, ooh. I know that's my bad Phil Collins impression, but something happened, and it wasn't my fault. For once, it was not my fault. The law firm that hired me and three of my other friends went bankrupt. Oh, yeah. It went bankrupt the summer we were studying for the bar. I mean, I was at the library studying all day, treated it like it was a job. And I went home and I was on the phone with my friend, Bianca Motley Broom, who is the wonderful, lovely mayor of College Park, Georgia. Hey, Bianca. But, and she was like, yeah, they had a softball game tonight and they announced that the law firm was going bankrupt. And I said, oh, that means we're all going to be out of work, right? She was like, yeah, that's what it means. And so that's what happened. And I still had to study for the bar. I still had to take the bar. And I studied and I passed eventually. No, I'm kidding. I passed it the first time, whatever. But it was a long process. It was an expensive process. Again, I mean, to apply for the exam. And then, no, you have to apply to sit for the exam. And then if they grant you that, then you have to pay for the exam. You have to pay for a background check for the exam. You have to pay for the preparation courses for the exam, which are much needed, honestly, worth every dime. But they're hella expensive. And then you have to pay for, I had to pay for lodging and meals during the exam. It was 3 days. And it was in our fair capital, a city that I love, is near and dear to my heart, Columbus, Ohio. And so that was more money. And I did not really have a lot of money, again, because I did not have a job. And so I was like, I got to get a job. Got to get a job. And so while I was waiting for my bar exam results, I found another job in Toledo, Ohio. And they said, yeah, we're just waiting for your bar exam results. And so I got my bar exam results. Yay, I passed. Wonderful, great. And in my true fashion, I passed the bar, get this job, move to another city, move to another state, because I lived in Michigan, but I worked in Toledo because my ex-husband did not want to live in Toledo. So I got pregnant. He put a baby in me. It was just a lot of things happening at once. And I thought, but it's okay. I have this job. I'll be fine. I will be fine. And I believe it was when I was 6 months pregnant, I got fired. I mean, I did everything I could to try and save my job, but it just was not working out. And it was fine because it was not fine. I'll say it was in the long run, it proved to be a better choice for me to no longer work there because it was not really a friendly environment. The first day that I was there, I didn't know I was pregnant. So I was fasting and it was Ramadan and they were inviting me to have dinner with them before the sun went down. They wanted me to have lunch and dinner. And I'm like, well, I'm fasting, so I can't do any of that. And they didn't go, okay, well, we'll reschedule. Or what time does the sun go down? We can have dinner after the sun goes down. It was just like pretty much after that, they were like, ugh. They decided right then and there that I did not fit in with their law firm culture. Every firm has a culture. You have to fit in. You have to go along to get along. You have to go to all of the events. You have to kiss a lot of butt. You have to do a lot of things to get on the path to partnership and just basically to stay employed, to have people want to work with you on projects, to have people put you on projects. That's what you had to do. And I was pregnant and once again in another abusive marriage. And I wasn't up to par. Couldn't do it, couldn't cut it. And so there I was, unemployed with pregnant. And I'm like, okay, well, all of my dreams are dashed now. What do I do? I had no idea. No direction, no nothing. I was like, I'm just going to take it easy for now. I lived off my severance. My loans went into deferment for a bit. And I had my baby. And I came back home to East Cleveland. I was living with my parents with my baby. And after I had gotten out of, my postpartum depression, because I had that very bad, and I had managed to scrounge up some interviews and I was applying for jobs like crazy. And I was going to interviews and I was leaving my newborn with a babysitter and who was my sister? Hey. But I was doing the things. I was writing the cover letters and I was applying to law firms and I was applying to whoever. I even did like temp jobs. I needed money. I needed money to take care of my baby mostly and to also take care of myself. And so I started applying for jobs with the federal government. And I was like, oh, something's got to come through because there are all these openings. There were so many openings. And I just happened upon a listing that was not anywhere else. And it was for an attorney job with a federal agency, a very important one I'm not going to name here. But I applied and I went for an interview and I was like, God, please just, have some mercy on me, please. Because I'm broke and I'm filing for bankruptcy and I got to feed my kid. I got to do something. If this doesn't work out, I'm going to have to find some other like non-attorney job to do. And alhamdulillah, it worked out. It was great. The place that I work was very supportive. They're very supportive in the federal government for families. It's perfect. I can't even imagine what it's like to work at a law firm and have small children because you have to work so many hours, you hardly ever see them. But with my job, I go to work, put in those hard 8 hours, and I mean, my brain is fried after I'm done. And then I can leave and go be with my kids. I leave after 8 hours or 9 hours. There was overtime and go be with my kids. So, but I had filed for bankruptcy and I started this job. And you know what survives bankruptcy is student loans. These student loans from undergrad and law school are still hanging over my head. And I was still paying them. I think I was paying like $100, $200, whatever I could afford. And it was fine. I was making ends meet and doing everything. And I was able to get into my own apartment with me and my son. And in 2007, George W. introduced this public service loan forgiveness program, the PSLF. Ooh, wonderful. It was so great. It was like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. This is something, unions and federal agencies have pushed for years and years and years. And here it was. We got it All you had to do was make 10 years of payments, consecutive payments, so 120 payments, and your loans will be forgiven. Any amount, gone. And I thought, okay, 10 years, I can do it. I can do it. I love my job. I love where I work. I love the people. It's fine. I'm having a good time. Great. Wonderful. So in 10 years, these loans will be gone. I'm going to keep paying them. I'm working, waiting for my 10 years so I can get my loans paid off. Obama becomes president. Yay! Hope, change. Boy, did he ever. Boy, did he ever. Now, I love you, Barack Hussein Obama. I think you're great. You're a great guy. You were a great president. You were awesome. But what you fucking did to the public service loan forgiveness program, I mean, you fucked it up for so many people. You fucked it up. You did. You made it confusing and terrible. You made it worse. You made it worse. How could you take something that was fine, and because it was, promising too many people relief, he was promising people too much relief is what it was. And in the beginning of his presidency, he was focused on austerity, right? Because we were in a recession and things weren't going the greatest for maybe 2 or 3, 2 years or so. And we needed to put caps on everything. Even in the federal government, we did not receive a raise, not even a nominal raise, in a few years because we couldn't afford it. All of our spending was going to wars, to defense. All of our money was, it was tanking. The economy was in the shitter, as Cousin Randy would say. The shitter's full. And so they, in their infinite wisdom, Congress and President Obama decided that they would change this program to cap the amount of forgiveness people would receive. I can't even remember what they were going to what they capped it at. I don't know if it was like 52,000 or 72,000 or something, but it was, there was a limit. It wouldn't be all of your debt. It would be some of your debt. And so if you would end up having to repay some because you would still have some left over. If you were like me and you had $80,000 in student loan debt, it wasn't going to cover all of them. And I thought, okay, well, I'll still have to pay some. That's fine. But then came the next rule that you had to be in a certain income repayment program. Your loans had to be paid back in a certain program in order for you to qualify. And it was the income-driven repayment program. So here they were steering this forgiveness program to people who were impoverished, who needed it the most. And I'll tell you this, my income was not low. I had managed through promotions and whatever to have a nice increase in my income. And I'm very grateful for that because I had now 2 kids to take care of by myself and I needed the money. Fine. So the income-driven repayment program, if I had gone into that program, I would have been paying over $1,000 a month for my loans on my loan payment. And after 10 years, they would have been paid off. So there would not have been a reason for me to do this, to do the public service loan forgiveness program. There would not have been any loans to forgive if I had been in the income-driven repayment program and paying $1,000 a month for however many years. So I didn't qualify. The Obama administration made it so I didn't qualify. Was I unhappy and bitter? For a little bit, yes. But I came to terms with it. I'm like, okay, I'll just have to keep making payments until I'm old and gray, whatever. I mean, maybe someday I'll get an even higher position and I'll be able to pay this off comfortably and won't have to budget so tightly. There's some people who can pay bills and just don't care. The money flies out of their account and they don't care. I am not one of those people. I have to budget. I have to budget. I have to do everything so carefully. I have to make sure every bill is covered. And that works for me, you know? But as I said, no income driven repayment program for me. No public service loan forgiveness for me. Nothing. I was like, okay, but I still love my job. I still love the flexibility it gives me as a single mom. So I'm going to stick beside her. I'm going to stick beside him. And I did. And my payments weren't even terrible. It was like $200, $300, which, I say that it wasn't terrible because there were people who were paying $600 a month, $800, $700. And they were paying $1,000 a month who didn't work in public service, who had no chance of any forgiveness whatsoever coming their way. They were just paying. And what a lot of us were paying on was the interest on our loans. Except for me, my interest was so low. But a lot of people who had 10%, 15% were just paying the interest. So the balance was never decreasing. They would find that after 10 years, 20 years, that either their balance would grow, so their balance grew after a certain number of years because they were just paying interest, they weren't paying down the balance, or it didn't move at all. Like they were paying and paying and paying and paying and paying and paying and paying, and that $200,000 stayed $200,000. That's how unfair lending had become for student loans. It became a racket. It is a racket, in fact. There's no reason that people should be made to pay high interest on educational loans. That's fucking ridiculous. This is not a spending spree people are going on. This is their education they're paying for. They have to take this money. You know why? Because it has become completely impossible for most Americans to pay to go to college without assistance from the government or from bank lenders. College has become so unaffordable that if you don't have a loan or you can't find a cosigner for a loan, you cannot go. You can't go. And with people telling you that you have to go to get a promotion, you have to go to be in the career field you want to be in, you have to go to make something of yourself, why is it still so hard to go? People aren't able to save money for their kids to go to college because the cost of living in the United States outpaces income. And as we've seen with the pandemic, people were using their savings to live. People were spending down their kids' college funds to live. If you have savings still after 2020, great. A lot of people do not. There are some people who are still out of work. And not because they don't want to go, but because they cannot find housing, number one. You don't want to be working and sleeping in your car. Number two, they don't qualify for the jobs that are in their area. Or the jobs that are in their area are not paying well. Now, a lot of employers are starting to pick up and see that if they want people, they're going to have to treat them like human beings and pay them a decent wage. But there are some who are still behind the times. So I continue to pay on my loan. Yay! Making the payments, doing everything you could. And then the pandemic hit. Whoa. Who saw that coming? Who saw everything shutting down and people having to stay at home? Not me. And you would think it would be cheaper to be at home as opposed to out working in an office every day. It is not. It is not, because what you save on not having to drive everywhere is eaten up by basically people eating. I had 2 kids, teenagers. They ate a lot of food. a lot of food, and the cost of food just kept going up and up and up and up and up. The cost of meat alone was breaking me. And the price of meat is still too high. It's still ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So whatever you were saving was just going somewhere else. Whatever you thought you were going to save because you were home every day, you had to pay in better Wi-Fi because now everyone was at home using the Wi-Fi. You were doing your Zoom meetings and your kids were doing their classes online. So you had to get better Wi-Fi. There was an increase in your electricity bill, obviously. There was an increase in your water bill, your sewer bill. And for me, too, there was the plumbing started to break down because it wasn't used to being used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And some of my appliances broke down. I mean, my electric bill just, it doubled. It doubled. So whatever I was saving by staying home, I was just putting on another bill. So I really wasn't saving. It was actually costing me money. And so we got the stimulus payments. Great, wonderful. And then came the news that the Department of Education was pausing student loan payments. They were pausing student loan payments. Again, amazing, wonderful. Not so quick, Ayana Fakir, not so quick. Not your loan. No, not your loan, because your loan is old. My loan was old like me. My loan had the letter D on it, which I guess was for dummy. No, I'm not. So my loan was a government loan, but the government had used private corporations to service their loan. So I had Nelnet. And because my loan was with a private servicer, I didn't qualify for the student loan pause. It was only for educational loans that were being serviced by the Department of Education. Can you fucking believe that? Can you fucking believe that? My loan was not a private loan. I took it out. I owed the government, the Department of Education, but because they used a private servicer, I didn't qualify for the student loan pause. So there I was being stretched to my fucking pennies, still having to make student loan payments while everyone else got their pause. And that was great because there are millions of people who needed it. Millions of people needed it. They needed it because they weren't working. A lot of people, their employers closed down, or they got sick, or they had to move. All these things were happening in the world. And so paying educational loans, couldn't do it. The government was not going to get their money. So they paused it, and they continue to pause it. And it's currently paused through December 31st, 2022. But again, I didn't qualify. So here I am still paying my bills. That's the American way. And then in October of 2021, something incredible happened. Something unbelievable. Something I never thought would happen happened. The Biden-Harris administration decided to pass a limited waiver opportunity for public service employees, where any loan of any type, of any amount, of any, didn't matter when you borrowed it, as long as you had made 120 payments, even if they weren't consecutive payments, even if they were late payments, as long as you had made 120, your loan would be wiped out. Gone. I was shaking. I was shaking when I heard that news. Because keep in mind, I had been paying on my loan since 2003. I'd been paying my loan since 2003. So by then it was 18 years that I had been paying on these loans. My God. I was finally going to get some relief. I was finally going to get this forgiven. My years in public service paid off in more ways than I could ever imagine. I did what they said. I applied for the consolidation loan under the Department of Education. Bye, Nelnet. Bye-bye. But also, bye-bye 3.2% loan. I thought, if this doesn't work, then I have just given up the lowest interest rate probably that anyone has ever seen on an educational loan. I consolidated, got my consolidated loan. I had my employer certify my employment. Yay, I've been with my agency since 2005. And I applied and I waited and I waited and I waited. And I was like, I was seeing other people be like, yay, I got my clearance today. I got my forgiveness today. And it's like October, November, December, and I'm still waiting. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Where's mine at? Where's mine at? But because I had consolidated under the Department of Education now, which if I had known that this was the case, I would have done this a long fucking time ago. My loans were paused under the Coronavirus Pandemic Relief Act. My loans were paused as soon as I consolidated. I had been paying my loans that whole time. And the moment I consolidated, they were like, okay, well, they're paused now too. And I'm like, so you mean all I had to... Okay, all right, okay. More bitter pills, more jagged little pills to swallow. And so I waited, and it's like January. Okay, where's my forgiveness? You guys said that you were forgiving all these people, and I obviously should be forgiven. I had I had 120 payments. I had been in public service for the requisite amount of time. I was still working in public service because you had to also currently be working in public service. Still working in public service, and I'm probably going to die working in public service too. I love it. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm like, okay, January, February. And finally, I was like, you know what? I need to call somebody. I need to call and I need to badger. And that is exactly what I did. I called and I badgered and I said, y'all better count my fucking payments. I have been waiting and I have been making payments. You all better count this. And I know I have the requisite number of payments. I fit all the requirements. I did everything you said. And they finally counted it. And I logged on because I was logging on every day, honey. And I logged on one day and it said zero balance. Zero balance. Zero fucking balance, y'all. My loans were forgiven, wiped out in March of 2022. Done, gone. $80,000 gone. Bye. I celebrated. I was so grateful to God. Grateful to God, grateful to the president. It could have been any president who did it. I would have been happy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir or ma'am. But it was Biden Harris. They came through. They came through like they said they were going to do. They came through, and they have now come through again for the American people. And I know that there are people who feel like this is not enough or it's too much. People are always going to be unhappy no matter what you do. You're either not giving enough or you're giving too much. But people who want to be unhappy will be unhappy. And there's nothing you can do about that except continue to do as you promised. And that is help the American people. That was what they ran on. We are going to help the American people. This is what they have been doing. And if you're at the point now where you want to turn off this podcast because I like that Americans are being helped, and I like that the people who are doing it are President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, please feel free. Please. I will feel no kind of ways because I am not going to pretend like what is happening right now isn't good for America. It is certainly good for America that people have debt eliminated so that they have more money in their pockets so that they can put more money into the economy. so that they can invest more, so that they can save more, so that they have more money to take care of themselves and their families. So that maybe this payment that was maybe $600 or $1,200 a month, they can now take that money and buy a house or get a better apartment or get a car so that they can drive to work, so that they're not walking or riding a bike. And maybe now they can afford to pay for daycare for their kids. There are all these things that loan forgiveness is going to free up for millions of people. And it's mostly going to be for people working, for people who earn under $75,000, but that's still millions and millions of people. You know, we're not all making hundreds of thousands of dollars here. A lot of people are in the 75 and below club. So now there's expanded relief for all borrowers. You don't have to be you don't have to be in public service. You could be anybody, anywhere. You could have no job at all and apply for this relief. And let's see, let's look at what it does. It provides up to $20,000 in loan forgiveness for borrowers, including currently enrolled students. Currently enrolled students can apply for debt forgiveness. It's incredible. It's incredible. Imagine going to college knowing that it's going to take you decades to pay this off, to pay it back. That would make you feel pretty fucking miserable. I know that it does. I know what it does to people. I know what debt does to people. I work in disability law. People have debt, thousands of dollars of debt from medical procedures. I know that it keeps them from wanting to see a doctor. And so they don't go see a doctor for years, even though they feel things going wrong in their bodies. So I know what debt forgiveness does for people. It's $20,000 if you went to college on Pell Grants, $10,000 if you didn't. Forgiveness is for anyone making less than $125,000 individually. The student loan pause, as I said before, is extended through December 31st, 2022. And then there's this, which is pretty fucking amazing. The new Biden-Harris income-driven repayment plan that seeks to substantially lower payments for people who use it says, if you have undergraduate loans, you can cap repayment at 5% of your monthly income. The new plan raises the amount of income that is considered non-discretionary income and therefore is protected from payment. Therefore, no borrower earning under 225% of the federal poverty level will have to make a monthly payment. So if you don't have a job, you don't have to make a payment. If you are impoverished, you do not have to make a payment. And it will forgive loan balances after 10 years of payments instead of 20 years for borrowers with loan balances of $12,000 or less, and cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest so that the loan balance does not grow as long as you make monthly payments, even if your monthly payment is $0 because your income is low. Whew. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And I know people hear that and they think, oh, a bunch of numbers, a bunch of jiggity boop. Doesn't make any sense. Why don't they just forgive all of it? They can't. We cannot afford it. The same way under President Obama, why he had to change the rules of the PSLF was because we couldn't afford what was coming, the millions of dollars that they were going to have to forgive. We cannot afford to cover billions, the trillions of dollars. We can afford a little bit, but even that little bit is still going to be billions of dollars. That is how much debt people are in because they mortgaged their future. They financed their education because that was the only way to receive higher education, was to get an educational loan. That was the only way. Yeah, you can apply for fine aid, put, your FAFSA. And if your parents make a lot of money, you're going to receive a little bit of money in assistance, even though you might need a lot of money. And if you're an adult, if you have a job, if you're working, you're going to receive a little bit of assistance. So you're going to have to pick up, some loans or get a second job. But this is how people are paying for college. It just is. We don't all have the savings and the wealth, the generational wealth, the new money, the old money to pay for college. And college is so fucking expensive. And perhaps that's where we need to go. After debt cancellation, we need to look at tuition reform. Perhaps what is needed after we reform the lending business, we should also look at tuition reform. Now, here are a few facts, because we're fact-driven here. Tuition was free for state schools and very low for private universities until the 1960s. Then tuitions rose mainly as a way to preclude poor people from attaining higher education. Between 1963 and 64, and then 1969 and 1970, the cost of attendance at private institutions rose 33.33%. And as tuitions rose and fewer people had access to college education, it became, you guessed it, a wealthy white person's club. That was hard, difficult for poor people and racial minorities to get into. Costs were adjusted for inflation, but what you received for the money you spent declined while the costs increased. So you weren't getting the bang for your buck. Between the 1969-70 academic year to the 1999-2000 academic year, the national average cost of tuition and fees at the average four-year institution increased 790.5%. And these stats are from educationdata.org. And there are people, who will tell you they paid for college while raising a family and working. And that's great. But it's because the era they came from, if you went to college before, say, 1965, you could do that. You could raise a family and go to college because it did not cost that much. And state schools did not see a rise in tuitions until the 1990s. In 1989 to 1990, that academic year, tuition at the average public four-year institution was $1,780 and increased by the 1999-2000 school year to a national average of $3,349, an average annual growth rate of 8.8%. And between 1989 and 1990 and 1999 and 2000, the total cost of attendance increased 66.3% at public four-year schools. The cost of private four-year schools grew 74.1%. The total cost of attendance grew at an average rate of 6.9% per year. And let us not forget the two-year university, the community colleges and such, which increased 58.3% during the same period. Students are struggling to afford college and taking on more and more debt to cope with these rising costs year after year. What you paid in year one will not be what you pay in year three. And it won't be what you pay in year 4 or 5. And while financial aid and scholarships lessen the blow, there are income requirements and other requirements such as student high school success, or immutable characteristics such as gender and race that apply, and not everyone qualifies for a scholarship. There are all these requirements that have to be met. Maybe your parents have to be a part of an organization, or you have to be a black woman, or you have to be Native American or Mexican, and that's fine. But if you're not any of those things, then you don't qualify for these scholarships. Or if you didn't do well in high school, if you didn't get a 4.0 in high school, you're not going to qualify for a lot of scholarships. You have a 2.0, good luck. And you still want to go to college. That's great. That is fantastic. Good luck finding funding. There are all of these barriers between you and money for college that ultimately you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a loan because I don't qualify for anything else. My FAFSA says I don't qualify for any government lending. I'm not qualifying for scholarships, even though I have decent grades. So what am I going to do? Get an educational loan. I mean, there are people who don't qualify for the Pell Grant. My poor Sunny son being one of them. It's incredible. I mean, we're not living high off the hog here. I'm not a wealthy person at all, by any means. It costs a lot of fucking money to live in Shaker Heights, Ohio. But I'm here because I wanted my children to have a diverse school system. But it's fucking expensive. It's costing me a lot of money. And even though my income is at a certain level, it's still not as high as it would be if I were in private practice. If I were in private practice, I'd be making well over $300,000 a year, over $400,000 a year by now. I am at substantially less than that. Way, way less than that. And the price of college is so high that even financial aid and scholarships feel like they're not enough. I mean, it feels like, you're adrift in a sea and waiting for help, and someone comes along and drains just enough of the water for it to be at your abdomen instead of throwing you a lifeline and pulling you out of the water. They're like, hey, hope this helps. Oh, gosh. But that's what it is. It's like you could get thousands of dollars in scholarships and still owe thousands of dollars in tuition and fees. And you don't know why. They're not going to tell you why. And this is one of the issues identified by Forbes magazine. They show a link between government subsidies and high prices in college education, but also note that colleges can get away with raising prices to capture federal aid because students have little insight into the true price and quality of the college product. You don't know how much they're paying for administrators, professors, building costs, etc., construction projects. Hell, my university had a golf course on it. They had a golf course, they had a cemetery, fancy giant-ass library. You don't know how much it's costing to have these things, to fix them up, to keep them running. You don't know how much it costs to have the new dining hall. You don't know how much it costs to have the new dorms, and people are donating money. Sure, great. But you still don't know how much it costs to operate a university, how much people are getting paid, what the administrators are getting paid, the secretaries, the custodians. Colleges are not showing you. They're not letting you look under the hood. They're not letting you take it for a test drive. They're not telling you all of the different bells and whistles that come with what you're buying. And that's how they get away with charging what they charge. Because you don't know. You don't know that you're, 75% of what you're paying is going to the president of the university who's making $5.6 million a year. They don't tell you, and they don't have to. There's no requirement that colleges disclose an itemized list of everything that your money is going to, of everything that you're getting for your money. There's no requirement. And because there's no requirement and they don't want you to know, because if you knew, then you would put pressure on them to lower the price. If you knew exactly what you were paying for, you all, people who are going to college, who are in college, would demand that they do something to reduce costs. Right now, there's no demand because you don't even know what the fuck you're getting. You see that line that says tuition, room and board, and fees, and it's thousands of dollars. And you're like, okay, well, I guess this means class and professor and shit. And it doesn't even mean books. You're still having to pay for books. You're still having to pay for books. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's a racket. Remember all the trouble those for-profit universities got into because they were taking people's money, making them take out exorbitant amounts in loans and giving them shit diplomas that weren't worth anything on the street? And then they're filing for bankruptcy. And the government, I believe there was a class action, and the government is forgiving all of the loans for people who went to these schools. DeVry. What was that other one? ITT Tech. I mean, it's a racket. And if they can get away with taking advantage of you, they will. But nobody's suing private universities or public universities saying, hey, we just want to see what we're getting. We just want to look under the hood. We want to look under the hood. So, I mean, imagine seeing a car with a price tag of $50,000, but not what's in the car, not test driving the car, not seeing, it just says 50,000 MSRP, and they're not even showing you the color of the car. But you want a car, so you just buy it? No, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't even buy a box of Raisin Bran without shaking it. When I go to buy, I do this. When I go to buy things like taco shells, I will shake the box to hear if it's like crumblies in there, because then I know that some of the taco shells are broken and I'm not going to buy that box of taco shells. I'm going to shake the box until I find one where I don't hear anything rattling around on the inside, because I want perfectly formed taco shells. I'm not paying for broken taco shells. Or when you go to buy air fresheners, you pick the one all the way in the back because you know the one in the front has been sprayed a little bit so people can see what it smells like. You want the full bottle. So you reach in the back and you're shaking it and you're looking at the little nozzle to make sure it doesn't look like any product has been leaked out. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. So when it comes to colleges, I mean, you're left with the decision: pay the price, whatever it is, or don't go at all. And many hundreds of thousands and millions of us go anyway. And also, the competition in the higher institution market is low. Yes, despite there being thousands of them in this country, if you want a new university form to compete with these other ones, it takes years, and sometimes millions of dollars in fees to get accredited as a university in this country. So that's not going to happen quickly enough for there to be enough competition to bring the cost of education down. But it is what is needed. Competition is needed. And showing us what's under the hood. And maybe the government can require universities to do that. But, the government is doing so much already. And universities and colleges are not caring enough to do this on their own. They're hiding what they're making you pay for, and they're doing it for very good reason. Because as I said, if you knew, you would not pay. If you knew, you would demand changes, and they would have to make them. They would have to make them. I personally think it's only fair that any institution receiving federal funds to operate, that it disclose to the buyers exactly what they're paying for and where the money goes. I think that's only fair. That's only fair. I'm still shocked that there are people who have a problem with debt cancellation and forgiveness, but not the astronomical fucking cost of education. That's the problem. It's not borrowing, because people borrow money all the time. Wealthy people borrow money. Wealthy people use their houses and their cars and things as collateral to start businesses. People do this all the time. Lending and debt, that's the kind of country we're living in. We're a debt-driven country. We're a lender-driven country. This is how we do business here. So taking a loan is not unusual. But people not having a problem with the exorbitant cost of education, of higher education in this country, is a problem. And if enough people care about this, then it will change. That's all it takes, is for enough people to care about this. That's all it takes. But because people are willing to pay the price anyway, because wealthy people are able to send their kids to school without a second thought about the cost, because people are willing to bear the cost of this, colleges and universities are not reforming. You want to go to a good football school? Yay. You want to go to a good basketball school? Yay. You want to go to a nationally ranked U.S. News and World Report university school with Ivy on it, with a fancy name that employers will look at and go, yes, we want them to work for us. Fork over the cash, mama. Fork it over. You want Yale, you want Harvard, you want Texas A&M, you want Notre Dame, it's going to cost you. And there aren't enough people upset about that. And you should be. You should not just be willingly forking this over. You should be pushing for change, for reform in college tuition costs, because that is the next thing that is coming. People are already foregoing going to school. They're putting it off because people don't want to be saddled with debt. And if colleges see their enrollment dropping, maybe they'll do something about it. There are some colleges, certain HBCUs, that are forgiving debt, forgiving loan debt for their students, because they know what a bear it is. They know how it influences where people work and the jobs that they do. They know that it influences people's decisions to go on to graduate school or to get a professional degree. They know what it is to have to graduate and you're still young and you have to make $1,000 payments every month and pay rent that has gone up substantially and pay for transportation to get to work and get home. And pay to wash your clothes, pay to have electricity, pay to have food. And maybe that's something that also needs to happen. Every university needs to, when the person graduates, forgive a certain amount of their educational debt. Just wipe it out. What would it hurt them to do that? It wouldn't, because a lot of these places are rolling in dough, honey. They're rolling in dough. So for them to forgive a portion of a student's loan debt, it would be nothing for them. But again, where is the sympathy for the students? Where is the sympathy for the students? And let me just address this one thing that is just bothering me about this topic when it comes to Black people. Reparations. We have been asking for reparations for American slavery, for the history of our ancestors being enslaved in America for decades. Yes, we have. Yes. Have we gotten them? No, we have not. Will we get them? Maybe. But us being satisfied, happy that we're getting this from the federal government, it's okay to be happy about it. It's okay to be happy that you're being allowed some relief. It's okay to be happy. Does that mean you should stop pushing for relief and payback and payments in other areas? No. Still push for reparations if that's what you want. Still push for equality in the medical field, equality in medical treatment. Still push for Black maternal health. Still push for our people in all these other areas. But when you see us getting relief in some areas, because this is actually going to provide relief for millions of Black people. That was the other part of it that I was so delighted about. For Blacks and Latinos, this is going to provide us the most relief. So why shouldn't we be happy about that? Oh, because the government can do more? Of course they can do more. Can they afford it? No, the fuck they cannot. I'm telling you right now, they can't fucking afford it. Even if they could, there are too many people who are against it, who would block it. We've seen those people. We've seen them in the Democratic Party. We've certainly seen them in the Republican Party. There are not enough people who want this for us. And until it is enough people, I've seen what enough people can do. Enough people is the reason why we have this loan forgiveness program being expanded to include everyone. Everyone. To go from just public service employees to the entire citizenry. Because enough people wanted it. Enough people pushed for it. Enough people clamored for it. People kept talking about it. People voted for electors that were going to be put in place who were willing to do it, who were willing to go to bat for Americans. If enough people want it, it's going to change. This has been how everything happens in the United States. Enough people wanted it to change, so it did. It wasn't because, it was the right time, the right circumstances, right set of no. Because enough people wanted it to be done. And if you believe Black Americans who are the descendants of slaves in the United States should receive reparations, keep pushing for it. Keep pushing for it. And make sure your children understand the need for this. And tell them to push for it when they get older. But that does not mean you shit on people who are getting relief through this student loan forgiveness program. Don't shit on us because you're a miserable person. Because even a little bit of relief, even a little grace from God does not touch your heart. Because you want it all. You want it all. It's always some motherfucker wearing fucking, African garb and Egyptian earrings and shit. Ancient Egypt t-shirt, emblem, whatever the fuck, who's so fucking Black, who's never happy with anything that the government does for Black people. Stimulus? Oh, y'all get that stimulus, but we ain't got reparations. Unemployment extended? Oh, y'all get that unemployment, but they won't give us reparations. Food assistance? Oh, y'all get that food assistance, but they won't give us reparations. Shut the fuck up. Excuse me. We're not saying be satisfied, because when you're satisfied, you stop fighting for change. But we're out here fighting because we're voting. We're voting. We're voting for the people, or we're going to be the people who are in Congress and the Senate at the state level and at the federal level, who are going to make the changes needed for us to finally get the relief that we deserve, that has been overdue for us. See, we're doing the thing. Y'all just sitting around talking shit, looking stupid. This is voting people's business. You want to have something to do with this? Go register to vote. Cast a ballot this November. It's a midterms. It's exciting times. A lot on the line here. And if you're still sitting around talking about what they don't do for Black people, what are you doing for Black people? And if you're someone who's always paid every bill on time every month and worked a job and never had to ask for a handout, good for you. You want a cookie? There is no shame in working hard and still not making it. There's no shame in working hard and still not having enough to cover your bills. In fact, the majority of us live paycheck to paycheck because the cost of living outpaced our incomes. The jobs that college students were promised if they invested in their higher education are not available like they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. And the jobs and careers they were promised if they got graduate degrees are not giving the income necessary to pay back student loans. And if you work in public service like I do, or even in the nonprofit sector, you're doing really good work and taking a financial hit. But there's no shame in any of that. People who clamor to make you feel ashamed because of what they've accomplished, believing that everyone can do it because they did it, are blind to the facts. And the fact is that the world does not evenly distribute opportunity. The world does not evenly distribute opportunity. In an earlier episode of my podcast, I discussed in depth empathy. That is the ability to put yourself in someone's shoes and feel what they are feeling, why they had to do what they did or react how they reacted, or to feel what they're going through so that you can deliver to them compassion and sympathy. If you struggle to pay back your student loans and manage to pay them off, you should not want others to struggle. It seems cruel to want others to struggle because you struggled. What is this American notion of we're a community, we help each other when we are in need, but when we see each other struggling, we let them struggle because we don't want them to have something we did not have. It's inconsistent. It's hypocritical. The criticism of the new loan forgiveness program seems antithetical to the ideals of patriotism and love of country and love of God. I cannot believe that people who purport to love God and their country would be against its country giving charity and forgiveness to its people unless you're lying. And this has been Ayana Explains It All, brought to you by facts, figures, and enlightenment. Take care.